Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me with a little blue check mark on Twitter. I gave up the ghost and verified at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my website, nickcraig.com. And now I can say, Brian, I'm more important than you. Good evening. Hope you're doing well.
I know. You might pressure me into to getting one just like you did into
I was sick of getting rate limited.
getting H1Z1 in the original, and now look where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. What's going on?
Not too much, but hey, if you want to find me, you can find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, which is currently not blue, but we'll see if that changes here. I told Nick to tell me if he notices a benefit from it, so we'll see. I may just end up doing it. Or you get at Brian Aldridge on Gab Getter or Truth Social.
You know, it's amazing. Before we get into our news, I just want to mention this quickly.
Yeah.
You know, Brian, I'm an adult. You're an adult. You have to pay for things that you want to do.
Yes.
Like if I want to go downtown on a weeknight, I have to pay $2.50 an hour to park. If I want to go to the beach on Saturday, I have to pay $5.50 an hour to park. You just have to pay to use things if you want to. I could park my car far away and walk, but that's a pain in the ass. And I was getting kind of rate limited on Twitter, which I didn't like. I use it all the time. So I spent $84 and I got Twitter Premium. It's you use something, you pay to get use out of it. I don't know what this. I mean, I pay for everything else. I pay Spotify. I pay for my internet. I pay for Xbox. I pay for all this other crap. I don't know why this is any different. So that's just my little soliloquy.
You're starting to tweet more, and I think that there is a benefit because there's a limitation if you aren't verified of how it spreads your tweets out to non-followers, right? So I think that's something. Yeah. I think that would be the big. I think that would be the big benefit of being what Twitter Blue is out there. Are they still calling it Twitter Blue?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that'd be the main benefit of being that. So.
Well, we're just plan on doing a regular show. I mean, we got a lot of news and a lot of things going on. But then about 11 o'clock, maybe noon today Eastern time, the big kahuna came down in regards to Microsoft. And it specifically deals with, and I want to make sure we go through this correctly because there's a lot of, I spent all afternoon reading up stuff because there's a lot of misinformation on this. Here's the headline over at CNBC. Microsoft Activision deal moves close. This is the best headline in the whole industry. Moves closer as judge denies FTC injunction request. So what was going on here was that the FTC filed for essentially a preliminary injunction and asked the judge to rule before the trial took place, before the ruling took place. That's what a preliminary injunction is. And the judge came back in this thing and said, your guys, being the FTC who filed for this, your guys' chances of winning this long term and having this fledge out isn't a guaranteed. So I am not going to rule in favor of you on the preliminary injunction. That does not mean that the FTC's legal attempts to block this are over. It just means that this hard stop that is ruled by a judge, no jury, no trial, is not going to happen. And that's relevant, Brian, because they are set to close on this merger next Wednesday, the 19th. Was the closing deadline.
A week and a day.
In this 2-year deal, I think it's the 19th or it's sometime late next week when they were supposed to have this deal done, which they're not going to. I mean, there's not even close, at least in the United States, from what I understand. But this is what the judge wrote, Judge Jacqueline Scott. Quote, this court's responsibility in the case is narrow. It is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, the merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending resolution of the FTC's administrative action. For the reasons explained, the court finds that the FTC has not shown a likelihood that it will prevail on its claim this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for preliminary injunction is therefore denied. How cool is it that the judge put Call of Duty in their little opinion here? That's pretty neat.
And that's the thing. I think that Microsoft jumped through every hoop possible and just said, tell us whatever else. keep it coming. Tell us we'll give Call of Duty to anybody, and we'll make almost everything non-exclusive. And it's still, there was these complaints that didn't seem to line up to what was actually happening. You'd see the CMA, and then you'd see FTC saying, "Oh, well, this isn't fair because," and they'd say some reason why they didn't think it was fair, but that was something that was already dealt with.
Yeah.
Or it was Sony doing that, but then they're saying Microsoft instead of the word Sony, and then saying, "See how bad this is?" And then everyone else who looks at it and actually has an understanding of the situation would realize that makes no sense. Like the CMA saying online gaming, which then they're claiming isn't even a thing. Well, if Microsoft is losing the console war and they're not be able to sell as many, well, then what's wrong with them then being stronger if this was the case in streaming? Because they need to have a way to be able. If they can't sell as many consoles, they still need a way to be able to sell games. So it just there's all these arguments that really don't line up to reality, and I think here the judge saw it. He said they've done everything possible to make it to where all these things that you're saying are going to be limited or available, and they're the most available company now with as far as distributing games, I think, than anybody. Sony doesn't do this, and Sony really showed their hands when they showed some of the documentation and everything really got flushed out, and they had to actually produce things that Sony probably didn't want produced. It really made Sony look bad, and I think it made Microsoft look a lot better because Sony was saying all these words without backing it up.
I was watching one of the business networks this morning, and they were talking about how something might be coming down with this ruling today. Mm-hmm. So I opened up a little Robin Hood and bought a bunch of shares of Activision at $81 a share. And would you look at that?
Yeah.
A 52-week high, $95 a share. So we're cashing in on the news. This is why you listen to the program. You get all your insight here. So just a little context here. This was in December when the FTC first started with this garbage.
Yeah.
They filed the suit to block it, so on and so forth. What's going to go on right now, though, is, okay, so the deadline to close the deal is July 18th. So that is, that is 1 week from today.
That's 1 week from today, so we'll be able to talk about it on next week's show. However,
there is an administrative case that is set for August the 2nd. So this will not close by next Tuesday. That's just not, it's not possible. There's still ongoing things. And I don't know what, I don't know exactly what's going to go on here, because what happens when they don't hit their close date? Like, are there going to be penalties? Are there going to be issues? I'm not really clear. I haven't heard anybody explain it yet, and I'm not familiar enough with mergers and acquisitions and vertical mergers and all this other stuff to really know.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what is going to happen 8 days from now, the day after, the 19th, when the deal has likely not closed. Or maybe somehow it closes in the next week. I have no idea. But the deal is not... Go ahead.
Well, I want to mention one thing. One thing they didn't mention in one of the CNBC article is that this judge is a Trump appointee. They had to bring that up.
Good.
I'm sure that's why.
Don't ever say Trump had done it.
He's a horrible pro-business judge. This is all junk.
Don't ever say that Trump hasn't done anything for you. Brad Smith, the president and vice chair of Microsoft, said, quote, "We're grateful to the court in San Francisco," imagine that, "for the quick and thorough decision, and hope other jurisdictions will continue working towards a timely resolution. As we've demonstrated consistently throughout the process, we are committed to working creatively and collaboratively to address regulatory concerns." And I know, we've been stroking Microsoft for the last couple of months, but when Brad Smith says that, Brian, he's right. Yeah. They really have gone above and beyond any other, not any other merger. I'm sure there's been thousands that have taken place that have been like this, but they really have gone above and beyond anything that they were required to do by law to get this freaking deal done. Yeah.
Because I've never seen in history with because there's been mergers that you hear about that were pretty big, but I've never seen one where they're just pretty much giving all this stuff to the competition and saying, "Oh, we'll keep on giving you our product for 10 years. Yeah. And then you hear what's funny is when you see the blog sites then say, well, that's only like 1 or 2 Call of Duties. That's so selfish.
Well,
it's 10 years worth of.
Yeah. And the point has been the entire time with this, in case you're new to the program.
Yeah.
It makes zero, and I mean zero, financial sense for Microsoft to take one of the most profitable video game franchises in the history of the world in Call of Duty and limit it to PC and Xbox. Could they?
Yeah.
Yes, and they'd be well within their right to do so. But it would not make any sense whatsoever for them to do that. They would lose out on billions of dollars worth of revenue. That is a stupid, boneheaded decision. And I've seen zero indication that that's what Microsoft is interested in doing. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I've seen none of that.
Yeah, and I think this is something that once this is passed and people really start to see what's come out of this merger, because I think we're so held back in technology when it comes to gaming, and we're so stuck on the whole console and hardware. I think that this, assuming it goes through, because that's what I'm assuming at this moment based on kind of the momentum that we're seeing with it. I think that once streaming starts to hit, I think it's going to be huge. And I think it will prop up the whole industry, create competition in that industry. But right now, I think everybody's, there's nowhere to stream. The hardware devices aren't there unless you buy a console or streaming to a browser, which this lets you do. I mean, I think that this merger, there's benefit. And the things that they have listed as the negatives that they keep on bringing up, I don't see them as negatives. I don't see them as stifling streaming and limiting competition, because there is no competition in the streaming space because nobody's gone and done it and shown what's possible. Just like with Netflix. Netflix did it first. They did it really well. And now there's a bunch of streaming companies that are able to compete with them in a lot of different areas. But until someone came and showed them how to do it, it didn't happen.
I want to read the statement from from an FTC spokesperson, Douglas Farver. He says, quote, "We are disappointed in this outcome given the clear threat this merger poses to open competition in cloud gaming, subscription services, and consoles. In the coming days, we'll be announcing our next steps to continue our fight to preserve competition and protect consumers." Before you jump in, Brian, I've got a couple of things.
Yeah.
Okay, cloud gaming and subscription services, fine. But in consoles, Activision doesn't make hardware. This does not change the console market in any substantial way. Activision makes nothing but software. Video games are software. Yes. They make nothing but software. They make like little trinkets and crap like that, but that's not the business that they're in. They don't do hardware. So that is stupid. And this clear threat, have you heard the clear threat that anybody's been able to articulate in a meaningful way?
Well, yeah, clear would mean it's something that's obvious. And I'm not seeing an obvious threat to cloud gaming. I'm seeing nothing but them being the only ones who are starting to do it. Sony's tried to do it, and they sucked at it. The first cloud gaming that I ever did was from Sony, and it was crap. And and I haven't heard it's any better. I've done Microsoft's, and it's just right now it doesn't. I don't mind downloading the games, but here's the problem. Right now, the industry is being stifled from not doing cloud gaming. And here, let me tell you why I think that's true.
Sure.
With, for instance, Unreal Engine starting to release these unlimited graphics type of games, how are you going to get that to your console? How is your console on a 1 terabyte hard drive going to hold one game correctly? So what are they going to end up doing to be able to fit that game onto your console? They're now limiting and shrinking the size of the games. You want to take advantage of the current technology. The way you do it is through having those in data centers, and you're streaming the content because you can't have it on your system. You can't have a full high resolution to where one level is a whole terabyte. Most people with their slow internet, especially in the United States, the UK, they have a law saying that everybody is going to have gigabit going forward. But it's not like that in the United States. We've got people here who are still on limited internet connections with certain amounts of bandwidth every month, and they're they're watching what they download. Imagine if they have to download what, 100, or I mean, let's say a 2 terabyte game in the future. That seems big right now. But imagine they have to download a 2 terabyte game here in 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. There's still plenty of people that won't be able to do that. And right now, the hardware that we have doesn't do it. They are only selling very limited hard drives. So everything's going to have to upgrade and change to accommodate the new technology that's already here. It's here, but it's not being put into the games into the capacity it could. Well, how the short-term solving of that is just like MMOs having a bunch of stuff that's, kind of offloaded onto servers. This is going to be the same type of thing, but it's going to be for the graphics, because you cannot hold it on the current technology. It's got to be streaming in data centers, and then you don't have to worry about all the RTX video cards. That's all done on the other end. I mean, it makes the cost of the device that you purchase so much less, and I think that's the way it needs to go, but it's got to be by a company that's capable. Because look at Amazon when it comes to shopping. What makes people want to go to Amazon, other than the selection?
Prime Day.
Well, it's the shipping, right?
Yeah, of course.
They have the infrastructure. They have the infrastructure to do the shipping in a way that no one else can compete. Is that hurting those other companies? Sure. But you know what? It's made it to where if I want to have something same day, I can. I would not have that through any other company. And if they didn't do it, nobody else would for a very long time, because the infrastructure is not there. Microsoft has the infrastructure to do something that's the equivalent of Prime Day shipping, and they're telling us no. What if I want to have something same day? Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, they're limiting us on the games that we're going to be playing in the next 5 years by trying to limit this technology, and then they're claiming it. You know what they're claiming? What it is they want the crappy versions to come out first, so other people are in the space. Well, I want to have a game that's so huge to where anywhere I go look, I stare at a tree and I can see a bug crawling up the side of the tree. That's the level of detail I want to see on a game. But you know what? That's not possible right now, other than small little levels.
Cyberpunk 2077 is the answer to all of your concerns there, Brian.
Well, the new one's going to be an Unreal Engine 5, so I bet you the new expansion they're putting out. So who knows? It could be really cool.
I have zero faith at all.
We'll see.
So kind of similar to this didn't happen today, but it perfectly works into today. It's happened last week. So there were two issues with the Microsoft Activision merger: the Federal Trade Commission here in the United States and the CMA in the United Kingdom. And now, all of a sudden, the writing seemingly was on the wall. A UK court, or rather the CMA rather, is asking to delay their hearing that they were going to over this until after everything is done in the United States. So once the FTC and all that stuff happens at the end of July, then the UK regulators, the CMA, will decide whether they want to go forward with their litigation over this as well, because at that point, if the FTC goes forward, they're going to be literally the only country in the world with a regulatory body that is holding the bag on this. And Microsoft
and I've said this before. Aside. I think it would be hilarious if the CMA or the UK were the only ones who didn't agree, and Microsoft said, all right, we'll pull out all operations out of the UK. As their whole country infrastructure shuts down, their government shuts down, because everything the UK already fined and neutered Google years ago, and Google doesn't like doing the business there. This would make it to where Microsoft could really embarrass this whole company, because if they pulled out and then said, well, you don't have, you can't use Azure, you can't use any of this, they wouldn't be able to do basic services over there. They rely heavily on Microsoft, yet they're treating them like this, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. So that's the big news of the day. You've got this presumably moving forward. I'm very curious what's going to happen in the next week as this deal is supposed to close.
Well, one thing though,
sure.
So they said, here's the CMA. They said, ready to consider any proposals from Microsoft to restructure the transaction in a way that would address the concerns set in our final report. Those concerns were cloud gaming. What are they going to do to address cloud gaming? I mean, they have a product that can stream anything in their Game Pass. what are they going to say? We'll make sure we don't offer everything in cloud gaming. We're going to make it we're going to make sure we don't do anything over 1080p. I mean, what are they going to offer with cloud gaming? Tell them to charge people more for it? I mean, I don't get what they're going to say, because Microsoft's just offering it as something, if you pay for their highest package, you get it. I don't get what in the world they could address differently with cloud gaming.
Well, and the inherent problem with this conversation the entire time is it's been like a what-ism debate. Like, well, what if you do this, or what if this happens, or what you can't address
rather than reality. Yeah,
correct. Because it's you've got governments that are trying to essentially see into the future of this. And in some regards, when you're dealing with, and here's the reality, I'm not a government fan, Brian. I don't know if that comes as a huge surprise to you or any of our listeners.
No, it doesn't.
But the goal of these groups, the FTC, the CMA, all these various regulatory bodies, is to protect consumers. At least that's their stated goal. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And in many cases, I'm sure that they help and make that process easier and better for you and I, the end consumer. But when you are trying to predict the future, especially in the technology realm, right? We're not talking about predicting the future in like, well, how many people are going to live in this city by 2030? You can project that stuff out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Can't do that with technology. It's literally impossible. I mean, 5 years ago, if you were to project the future and hop in a time machine 5 years forward, you'd be like, the thing I talked about doesn't even exist anymore. Vine is going to be the biggest thing in the world. Vine is gone. Well, Vine doesn't even exist. Like, that's how quickly this stuff changes.
Well, just look at AI. The topic of AI in a year has just blown up and become something that wasn't being talked about over a year ago. So
no,
I mean, that's the perfect example of they're trying to say, well, in the future, well, you don't know what's going to pop up. AI could become a huge part of gaming to where it changes, how much data. It could change everything. Yet you're trying to say, well, we need to set these things in place and have you make promises and have you lock into things for 10 years. How can you lock into anything for 10 years in technology?
You can't.
The product could be gone in 10 years.
Correct.
For, for all that matters.
You can try, but it's probably not a very fruitful effort. One
thing that I found interesting is the UK wants them to commit to investing in the UK's gaming industry. This is what it comes down to: money. Well, I get it in front of the screen. Money, 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 money. So we want it to where, you're going to invest and give money to the gaming industry. Why is that Microsoft's deal? Why are they supposed to give money to competitors? Giving rival game publishers access to Activision Blizzard games and services, they've done that. Selling off part of Activision Blizzard's business, such as Candy Crush franchise. They've offered to do that. Why? Why would they sell off Candy Crush? How's that going to change anything?
If Microsoft is able to get over this FTC hurdle, they won't do this. But if I was Brad Smith, I would tell the UK to go literally pound sand. I'd be like, you know what? To hell with you guys. I'm done. F you guys. Like I'm like, whatever. We don't care what your deal is. We don't care.
They want them to give money to the competitors. It's the stupidest thing. They want them to. That's the main thing, and then to sell off Candy Crush. I mean, where in the world does that change anything with Activision Blizzard?
It doesn't. It doesn't at all. And it really goes to show you.
Grandmas would be crushed, with
I don't even know that Candy Crush is even a big revenue generator for them anymore. But the point, it goes to show you, this is one of the biggest issues with government. And when these things make their way in front of government, is you inherently have a group of people that don't have a freaking clue what they're talking about. They couldn't. I mean, I've mentioned this on the show a whole bunch. Nothing's better than a Senate or House committee asking Mark Zuckerberg why Google results are the way that they are. I mean, it really just goes to show you that these guys don't have any grasp or any bearing on what this stuff is. And that's where government becomes really dangerous, is when you've got them regulating things and entities that are so fast moving like technology and that they know inherently nothing about. I mean, there's a couple of guys. There's the guy that got nailed for using his campaign finance to buy Steam games. He's like $5,000.
Oh yeah, there's that guy.
He knows a thing or two. There's probably a couple of other guys up there that know what's going on, but the vast majority of them have never played an Xbox game, have never played a game on PlayStation, none of them have ever used xCloud. I can guarantee you that. So that's where the real battle is, at least in my mind, of how you first of all, how do you regulate an industry where things literally change so rapidly? And the answer is you don't.
Yep.
That's the solution to it, is you don't, because you can't. And a glaring enough problem shows up, all right, maybe you do something. But just in a general practice, government moves too slow, industry and innovation happens too fast. Stay out of the way. That's my approach to it. Just get the hell out of the way.
Microsoft is not a bulletproof company. I mean, they seem to act like they can request anything of them. You're stifling and causing harm to them if you're saying they have to do certain things. Microsoft's laying off hundreds of people. It hasn't been officially announced, but they're laying off hundreds of people out of the United States and Europe. And this is something, right now they're trying to kind of better align with their what they call strategic priorities and aligning resources. But it's not like they're not Twitter. They can't just keep on running forever on, some mystery budget prior to Elon Musk. They, as the atmosphere changes, the gaming industry changes, they're subject to losing money and all this, just like the rest of them. So all of these things that they're trying to push them to do, it seems like they're just trying to harm Microsoft and make them less competitive, which it's hard enough. Right now, the gaming industry is in shambles as it is. And you're trying to do this to make it even harder. I think that's just kind of the crazy thing. They just treat them differently than they would, I feel like, any other company in the industry.
A great example of this, and it's not the perfect example, but take a look at the original members of the S&P 500 back in the 60s or whenever that was started. And all of those companies, there are hundreds of them that are no longer in existence because things change.
Yep.
So that's the latest on it as we understand it right now. There'll probably be some more fallout in the next couple of days, and I'm sure next week's show will be just jam-packed with some more news stuff in regards to this.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here, Brian?
Well, hey, let's talk about something that kind of surprised me because it's something we've talked about with AI that I think will be a big part. I mean, first, finding bugs is one thing, but finding cheaters, I think, is going to be one of the biggest things with AI, and making it to where people that are using the obvious cheats are not going to be able to do it anymore. PUBG, the dev, which Krafton, says that they are banning up to 100,000 accounts a week now that they've deployed AI models to hunt cheats. And I started mentioning before we went on the air to Nick, I just remember when we were dealing with H1Z1 and how because we kind of had a little bit of an inside window into how they were doing their anti-cheat. And it was a guy who worked there who was making spreadsheets and running a script at night to ban people. Way different than what they're doing now. And here with this, there were things because people got upset when not us, but someone in our clan built a tool that detected if someone was moving faster than they were supposed to, or was moving in a way that they weren't supposed to. And some of the cheaters freaked out and they said, look, they're cheating. Oh, well, all it did was beep when someone moved faster than they were supposed to, so we knew if a cheater was coming at us. I mean, it was a wonderful little tool. We were able to detect cheaters, yet somehow H1Z1 could not detect them, which always shocked me because we had the ability with pretty good accuracy to know when someone was cheating. Once in a while, if maybe someone was falling a certain way, it could detect, it would, that would be something, it would be nice if we were in the inside system to be able to see that. But we could detect it, yet with all their tools and everything they were doing, and I suggested to them, I remember a long time ago, I was like, why don't you run anti-cheat on the clients? Have each of your people run anti-cheat and then notify the server if there's someone and they think they need to check. Of course, someone could, use that against them, but if someone keeps putting in false reports, you can see that and you can ban them. Right? I mean, there was plenty of things you could do. Here, AI is able to do that. They're just inspecting all the traffic. They're like clients in the system. They see people doing things they're not supposed to, and they can ban them. 100,000 accounts a week. That's a huge amount.
I often struggle with, and I've expressed to you, Brian, and I've broken down on the show about how I feel like I'm missing the AI bubble, and in large part I still feel that way. But I'm I'm not going to have a panic attack over it tonight. That'll be tomorrow. But I think a lot of people, myself included, we see what AI can do. Yes, Bing can generate images. Bart can do this, and OpenAI, ChatGPT can generate text and write, articles and news stories and all this other stuff. But this right here, this headline that you just read, PUBG, 100,000 accounts a week, deploying AI models. Yep. To me, this is where AI really is unmatched, where you can, you can build software to detect cheaters, as you just described. If user or if object is moving over X speed, then alert. And that's a good thing. That's very rudimentary programming. That's a very simple if-then statement. And that's how programming has existed for 50 years. But this is a whole nother level. This you've heard the term machine learning before. It's a lot more than this if-this statement. It is actually learning. It is detecting what is going on, and it is making a decision. And that is where AI, I think, is really going to, I think, be able to do wonders in instances like this. You're talking about a very, very small thing that AI is doing in regards to this. This could have huge impacts on the industry and cheaters as a whole. AI, instead of having to do manual bans, is not much of a thing. I mean, yes, there's reporting and all that stuff. A lot of this stuff is already being checked anyway, and they would, if you were doing this so many times, your account would be booted. But this is huge. This is absolutely massive for gaming.
And I mean, to do this, what they were able to do was they used an AI model to train based on all the previous bans. So they took data from all the previous bans to the manual bans and everything that they did through their other systems. And then they have the AI models look for patterns, because with certain patterns, just like, remember when we were able to see another character's view and you could kind of tell someone's cheating because they would pan certain ways when, they could see things through walls. And so it caused them to kind of, focus, because they're just kind of trying to figure out where they're going to go. They'd focus on something they're not supposed to see for a little bit too long. And you'd be like, dude, that person is cheating because they are not supposed to see that person back there, but you can tell by how they're moving, they can. This is the kind of stuff that AI will be able to detect. Those patterns that where 90 whatever percent of the people that are cheating tend to do a certain thing and the people that aren't cheating don't, it'll see it. And it'll say, this person falls into that pattern. All right, there's most likely a cheater, ban them or mark them for banning or however they end up doing it. So they identify these patterns that suggest cheating, and as long as these 100,000 are accurate per week, or 99.9% accurate, I think that this is definitely going to be something they put into full, because right now it's in a development state.
Sure.
They're still implementing it. But I think that as they start to tune it, 100,000 is probably the low end. We've seen how many cheaters are on these type of games, especially when they go free to play. Then, a free to play game is, and we've said this in the past, a free to play game can almost not exist in an online environment because of cheating. It was the point it was reaching. And I think the only way you'll be able to combat that to where a free to play game can exist, because people can create accounts and, change hardware IDs and use VPNs and just do everything to get around all the current systems to detect whether or not that is a person who's already been banned. This, I would think, once they're fully tuned in operation and really working well, because AI, as we said, is fairly new, this is something that I think we'll be able to keep up and make it to where free-to-play games can exist and not be overrun, because so many have been just drowned out, because H1Z1 being a perfect example. So many people stopped playing H1Z1 because the servers weren't playable. As an individual player, you'd have some guy yelling stuff in Mandarin, flying through the air, shooting you, from you can barely see him, and he's shooting you from across the map. That was the norm by the kind of towards the end of our normal H1Z1 days. That would not happen anymore. And of course, the cheaters, I think, are going to have to get a lot more sophisticated, and maybe this will put into a whole new tier of what cheating is and get rid of all the kind of the basic stuff.
Yeah, one of the other things that they note is that their machine learning model that they're doing, which is essentially their AI backend, is capable of detecting, and this is interesting, hijacked accounts. Because one of the things that the hackers, quote unquote, are doing is they're stealing people's Steam accounts. They're going into games and getting them banned. So they're able to do that. They say it's not implemented yet, but they say, quote, we can assert to a certain level the attributes of these accounts and leverage this information effectively. They say they're currently working on enhancing the model's accuracy and applying it to their anti-cheat measures. So they're working on a full approach. Well, I think they might be looking at patterns. Like if you're a US
what if
player,
someone else plays a What if when someone else though plays? I hand my control over and say, like, "Here, play a game." That would be a drastically different play style.
No, it's not. I don't think it's play style. I think if I had to guess, I know nothing about this. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Right? You live in Idaho, and you play from Idaho, and PUBG has all of this information about you playing from Idaho. And then the next thing you know, you are logging in from Chechnya, and you log in from Chechnya, and you are just headshotting everybody in the game. In all likelihood, you have not moved to Chechnya and have all of a sudden
become way better on the
become the
over.
greatest PUBG player that's ever existed.
Yeah.
Right. So there's things like that. And I don't know. That would just be my gut impression of what would be something that they could look into is, this doesn't, the AI, again, this is not, a person used to have to do this stuff. Now the AI can go, this person usually logs in from IPs in this range, in this location. Now they're all the way across the world and they're cheating. So maybe instead of permabanning the account or doing something, maybe we just suspend the account temporarily. Or maybe we just boot the user from the game over and over again or something of that nature. Maybe that's how they do it. But they say something interesting out here. Diverse anti-cheat measures. And anti-cheat should be more than just what are you doing in game. Because there are so many other things that they can use to diversify this pool of how do you tell somebody is a cheater? And obviously that's what they're doing over at Krafton, and props to them, because as I read through this article, they mentioned some of the things that are being done in Call of Duty that are completely separate.
Like hallucinations and all that.
Yeah, which are cool, but they're not AI. I don't know of any other major game that's implementing anything like this. The Call of Duty thing essentially makes fake players pop up on your screen if they think you're cheating, and then you just spend your time shooting a bunch of fake accounts and a fake AI, or excuse me, not AI, a bunch of fake mannequins essentially, and then they can say, okay, obviously this person's cheating because they're shooting at all these fake objects that aren't even actually in the game. So that's how they're handling that. But in terms of using AI, machine learning, whatever the buzzword you want to use, PUBG's probably the biggest game in town doing it. Good on them.
Well, and if other companies see that this is successful, this will become the standard, because so many of these companies have been waiting, these studios have been waiting for anything that can help combat this, because this is really the major limitation to competitive gaming on the internet. The amount of cheating and hacking and everything that's been happening kind of takes away from the fun of doing these types of games. And I think that if they can get this to where there's a level playing field, because who knows what playing a lot of these games is really like if you had all the hackers gone. Because there's so many people, I think there's such a high percentage of people that do cheat to where it affects a lot of games that you play in and you don't even realize it. In Fortnite,
it turns you off.
And then once you get just headshotted from something that doesn't feel realistic, it's just, how many times did we log off of H1Z1 and just be like, I'm done for tonight. This is not worth it, because it was so obvious, yet nothing you knew was really probably going to happen from it, and it was going to happen tomorrow, and it's going to happen the next. Whenever you logged in again, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen every day, and you got to the point where it's like, okay, well, whatever. And I think that if they can get them to not feel that, that would be huge for keeping people active on these games.
It's not only the biggest issue in competitive gaming, it's the biggest issue in any online gaming, is this apathy for people to just disconnect and say, screw it, throw your hands up. I'm not gonna play. I don't know that it's happened to me recently. But yes, going back to H1Z1, games like Rust and Ark, I mean, there were just so many times where it was like, I've played this game enough. I know damn well, without a shadow of a doubt, that this was something that I got by whoever this person is, and it just pisses you off, and it's a huge loss not only for you but for the game, for the company. I mean, how many people have logged off these games permanently because of it? Thousands, tens of thousands. It's a huge issue.
Well, hey, do you want to go until we're done? Do we want to go through some more AI things, or do you have anything in particular you wanted to touch?
No, we can continue with that.
All right. Well, let's talk about AI in one area. We have an election year coming up, which is always a blast.
Oh, yes.
Literally.
Most transparent.
Something's burning down. So the Pentagon is turning to AI. Yes, mostly peaceful, always. The Pentagon is turning to AI to help detect deepfakes. And this is something that I think is going to be a pretty big issue in this coming election year, because this hasn't really been a thing. It started to be a thing in the last election. Like, you would kind of see some things, but I think they were fake enough to where it wasn't a big deal. As technology gets better, I think this is going to become a pretty big problem, because there will be people, I mean, the uninformed voter, they'll see a video of something that they assume is true. They'll do zero research past that to determine whether or not it is true. And that'll be, they'll repeat that lie and repeat that lie and repeat that lie. And even when it's proven differently, they'll continue to repeat that lie. I mean, just look at the Russia, and all this that's been proven, but there's still people saying, oh, Trump is a Russian agent and da-da-da. Okay, that they will continue to believe. So I think this is going to be an issue of, I don't know if they're doing it for the same reasons. They're probably doing it to protect Biden, but I think that this is going to be a thing that will really sway elections, as maybe other avenues of them cheating and maybe affecting elections starts to change, because they can make a voice that's almost identical. I think right now there's still a little bit of fluctuations in the voice that aren't quite right, but I think that's shortly, in the next couple of years, not going to be something you notice anymore. I think it will be a big issue.
I am very concerned whenever I hear a three-letter agent. Pentagon's not a three-letter agency, but any of these groups using DOD. AI. The DOD.
This DOD is what they are.
Using AI to tell the public what is real and what is fake. And the reason I say that, and I don't want to get too far off into talking about, snow globes and, white powder and all that other fun stuff. But these are the same departments, Brian, that spent the 2020 election telling social media companies that something that they knew was true, that they had verified evidence was true, was fake. So I have no trust in the Pentagon. I have no faith in the DOD, the FBI, or any of these other alphabet agencies at all, whether they're using AI to tell what something's a deep fake or not. I don't trust them. Because something might be a deep fake, and they'll go, well, looks good to us, even though they know damn well that it's a deep fake. So that's my concern with this, is that they're just still going to lie, because that's just what they do. Even
because we had a video that was banned for talking about something that if you went and researched it, you would realize was true, but because an organization doesn't want to believe it, they then ban because they don't want to trust the reality. The problem is, it's whatever side you're on, you're going to get banned regardless. The truth doesn't matter is the problem.
Correct.
It's whether or not that the side that you're, or service that you're using, whether or not they agree with the person or not. It's what it really comes down to. And so the problem is, I'm sure that there will be deep fakes that are banned as long as they affect a certain candidate. But somehow the other ones will be missed. And that's been the track record, I think, of the last, 4 years, 8 years, that we've been seeing such a one-sided biased side to all of these different industries. I mean, just look at what's been happening. The Supreme Court recently said, well, the government can't sit there and tell these companies who to ban anymore. And they're fighting it. Well, why should the White House be reaching out and saying to ban specific people? They would say, "Oh, that's not true. That didn't happen." Well, they have documented proof of it, right? And they were allowing one side to make the decisions and take away the voice of the people. I think that's what it really comes down to. If you can come up with a way of detecting these to where it's fair, but who's deciding what's fair? And that's where I kind of, as you're saying, we lose that faith in these processes because it's always going to go towards one way.
Well, let me be clear. The detection will be fair. It will be the information that comes out of the detection that is subjective.
And the enforcement, the enforcement's is what's not fair, because just look at what's happening recently. That the enforcement's been one way, and it's super obvious, but you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Or else you might get banned. you can't make a video about it. You might get banned. Well, what happens when all of the truth comes out and they finally admit that what you said was true? Well, the damage has already been done. That's the problem. It doesn't matter if the lab leak theory and all these things be proven true. You've already banned and silenced all the people who were trying to make people aware of it in the first place, right? That they got what they wanted in the end. They don't care about whether or not it eventually gets proven true or false. You repeat a lie enough times. This came out of the Nazis. You repeat a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. And I think that that's what they want, because there's people that will never believe, regardless of what the truth is, they'll always believe whatever the one political side wants them to believe.
Well, and there's the old phrase, and it's in the news business more in the print world than it is anywhere else, that only 12% of people read the update or the retraction of something.
Yep.
Like a newspaper runs a bad article.
And the damage is already done.
Damage is already done because less than 15% are going to see it. So, yeah, it's interesting. I just don't trust it. I just don't trust the government with pretty much anything. Brian, I want to talk about, I want to shift and I want to talk about Ark. This is one of our, our old timey games. I mean, we were kind of on the Ark craze early on. We talked about it a lot. It was a big part of the show. We interviewed a couple of the Studio Wildcard guys at this point, probably 6 years ago, I guess. Maybe some crazy amount of time ago. And the most recently we talked about Ark Remastered and the new Ark and this weird pricing structure where you're essentially pre-ordering the game and you're getting it later, but you're getting the remaster early. It's been kind of a mess. But it looks like Ark Remastered is being delayed. And Brian, shot across the bow. What's the reason? Quote, "We found it challenging working with Unreal Engine 5.2. Brian, they're coming after your boys. What do you say?
Well, what is it about 5.2 that's so challenging? What I would say is probably because there's been a lot of improvements and changes that have come in the recent versions, because Unreal Engine 5 didn't come out that long ago. It was a drastic change from the previous engine, and they were able to implement the early version. They had early access to that. But there's been a lot of things that are improving performance, putting in just things that will prevent stuttering. I think what they're seeing is, well, because a lot of times these companies will say, okay, we're locking into Unreal Engine 5.1. And regardless of what updates come out, we're going to do the patches, but we're not going to release to 5.2 until after the release. Well, I think the problem is they're finding that some of the improvements of 5.2 are so good that they just can't put them down. And so they're now having to, at the last minute, implement some of these things so that they can take advantage of things that are really going to make the game a lot better. And now they're having to do it at the last minute. Well, whose fault is that? That's their fault for wanting the latest and greatest and, wanting to implement it now and not being willing to wait till, not that that's a horrible thing, but it's not 5.2's fault. It's the fact that they're now having to implement into a fairly far along project new technology and revamp all that to implement these things.
Quote, "We're discovering new ways each day to push the technology to the next level, combined with the work needed to support a fully cross-platform moddable game ecosystem, which is it's got to be a huge pain in the ass. On consoles and PC, it's clear that we'll need a little bit more time." This game was supposed to be out next month. August is when this was slated to be released. They have not given, in their newsletter, they don't seemingly give any indication as to when the soon TM we need more time is. But
end of 2024 is what I'm seeing.
But there's, and yes, but that's not a time. It was supposed to be out in August. End of 2024 is not a replacement. Right,
I say almost a year and a half.
Yeah, well, but I think the concern there is like, okay, you said it was going to be out in August, and now it's not. Just say December then. I just give me a month. I don't like end of the year because end of the year to me means early 2024. Because if you can't say November or December, it means you're not going to be ready. Now this could be an issue because they were planning on shutting down the original ARC official servers August 31st, but since the new one remaster is not going to be out, they'll be on until
push that back.
Only until September 30th though. So how is that going to work?
I wonder if they already did all their things to cancel their contracts with the server providers. Things that they're
So original ARC is going to have no official servers between September 30th and whenever the hell end of 2024 is? Or end of 2023?
People are going to have to start over new anyways. They probably figured since those people are going to be down and out. But that would probably be a big improvement, though. We'll probably have a lot of people coming to our ARC servers because they're going to be forced out of the official ones. So, that'll be good for the privately hosted ones. Here, let me tell you, I want to give you a list of the new things that came in 5.2 that I think they're chasing here.
For Unreal Engine?
Okay. Nanite. New Nanite. So they did a new Nanite, which gives you the high detail assets and all that. They've updated it to a much better version of that, which one thing I was mentioning is going to help with the stuttering, which is ARC has always had a problem with. A whole new water system that looks and is a lot more complex as far as what it shows, but with really good performance. So that's going to be a huge thing because there's a lot of water in ARC. A whole new foliage system has been in 5.2. Another thing that ARC is huge on, trees and foliage and all that stuff, that's now going to be more realistic and more detail. A whole new visual effects system, which makes things more realistic and have better dynamic effects. I think those three things they're figuring out they're going to have to redo before launch so that because all the mods and everything that are created based on these things are going to be relying on those things being that way. And the problem is if they implement these things after the fact, people that have made mods for the current version of the new ARC will then have to redo them all and it'll break the whole system later. I think that's what it comes down to. Plus there's some new, tools and things with like the Niagara editor. But I think those three things are the reason that the ARC's being delayed. Because they want them in the new one because they're so good and they're not willing to. I think it's a good choice because I think it would cause problems that would really sour people later and really sour mod creators later because they're going to have to do a whole lot of work and relearn a whole new system and redo it.
I have the suspicion that all of this delaying and the pushback, this stuff adds up for people. Now you'll have your hardcore ARC folks that does ride or die. They've already, I think you can already pre-order it. They've already done that. But for the layman, which I'll consider you and I right now. We're not active ARC players. Yes, we host servers and all that. We've played a lot of ARC. But for the more general layman, this does not give me a lot of faith. And this is not a dig on Studio Wildcard. I have a lot of respect for the guys over there. I don't know if the same people are over there, but they did it. What they did when they did it, ARC was, when that game came out, it's just, you talk about a different era of video gaming, Brian. I mean, you had Gary's Mod and ARC. I mean, it was like, those were the games. Rust wasn't out. None of these games were out. What they did early on was remarkable. But this really does sow doubt. I mean, people have already been kind of unimpressed with some of the stuff they've seen out of ARC 2. The whole Vin Diesel thing is hokey at best. I just wonder if this is going to hurt them with the general consumer. Maybe the guy or gal that played ARC back in 2016 or 2017 and hasn't played it in 7 years. Are they going to be like, for another $40? No, do I not spend another $40 on ARC? Like, all this delay and all this other nonsense. Or maybe they're not following it close enough and they don't even know. But I don't know. It just, when you see this over and over again, it creates some doubt. And rightfully so, I think.
Well, I think that they're hoping that the improvements that they're implementing are going to be enough of a wow factor, and the improvements that they're implementing are going to be enough of a performance improvement to where maybe they'll get people to have a better experience in the end on their system, and the screenshots will look that much better. Because the 5.1 versus 5.2 is a significant improvement. I think if Unreal wouldn't have come out with something that was just that much of a jump, an improvement of things that they're actually going to use in their game, then this wouldn't have been an issue. But I think they created a problem to where they probably had meetings saying, "Hey, we really want these things. Like let's do a pro cons list and figure out, is it worth this?" And I think in the end, when they looked at the actual improvements from the engine, they decided, yes, this is worth it because the game is going to, because just remember the rubber banding and everything that we saw early. I think they try to push the technology for when the game is going to be released, not for the game who's going to be playing the beta test, because we were all, our systems could barely run the game at the time when it came out.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to have a lot of people that are still there right now. Most people don't have 4000 series NVIDIA cards, and most people don't have all those things. The consoles are going to barely be able to run them as they are. And so I think that any of these things that they can put in to make the experience between a console and the PC and more people being able to play it, people in the end, once it's all released, will forget, because they seem to always forget. And unless the game, we've had ones that never actually released. I think they kept pushing it out and nothing ever happened with them.
Hide and hold out, baby.
Hide and hold out, still waiting. But
H2O,
that's the thing
Waterworld.
There's ones that have never recovered from that, but I don't see Studio Wildcard not recovering. I think they're going to continue here. Once they get these improvements put in, they'll start putting out screenshots and teasers, and people will be right back there again. They'll see awesome realistic water with wave effects coming up on the beach, and it looks real. They'll be all in and say, "Oh yeah, this was worth it."
Yeah, I'm pretty.
We have short memories.
I'm pretty interested in. I'm pretty interested in it. I had so much fun playing Ark, and I think it'd be cool to jump back in there. So I'll probably buy it.
I saw a video here of someone who made a wave effect in Unreal Engine 5.2 here in the last month or two, and
like ocean waves, like water waves,
like ocean waves onto a beach.
Uh-huh.
And it was so realistic to where you saw the waves actually turning and breaking up as they hit the beach. It's something that no other engine is being able to do up this point without doing hokey little effects. I think that the things you're going to start seeing, and that's why I brought up during the cloud gaming discussion, the technology is so advanced right now to where the systems aren't keeping up. And I think that I'm really excited to see those ultra realistic games to where it'll be hard to discern, and I think we're right on the cusp of it. Hard to discern between reality and the game, and that's in the next 5 years. Max 10 years, you'll start seeing stuff that's coming out regular. We're right there, and then this is an example of them, I think, wanting to be to where in 3 years, when they're coming out of whatever testing they've done, and saying they're finally releasing the full-fledged game of their, Ark 2, they want to be right there to where their technology is keeping up, and I think this is kind of the beginning of that.
All right, final thing for you. Steam Summer Sale's on right now. Have you purchased anything?
No, I mean, I got my new video card, but like, for instance, I've got New World, I've got Sea of Thieves. I mean, I've got a lot of these games already, and I've not been playing. I want to play Valheim. With my new video card, I want to play Cyberpunk on ultra settings on my computer with RTX turned on, all that stuff. So I don't know. I've got too many games right now that I can play again. I don't need to buy anything. There's no games out really that I've got Diablo already, the new Diablo. I've got the games I want to play, and not enough time to play them.
This has been one of the least talked about, hyped up, mentioned summer sales that I can remember. And I know I'm pretty disconnected, so I'm probably not a good whatever for it, but I've heard nobody talking about the Steam Summer Sale. It runs a couple more days, so if there's something you think we need to buy, throw it in our Discord server, let everybody know that, hey, it's on sale, you should go buy. I just haven't seen any chatter about any.
I think we're in a drought right now. I mean, with the current state of the economy, we've mentioned it week after week. Studios laying people off, studios cutting back. People are a smart studio who has a product that they can delay. And what if, hear me out here, what if part of the decision behind Ark is not purely technology-wise, but realizing that if we release now, we're going to get a lot less sales. Come post-election, people may be more upbeat on what their finances may be in the year after that, and they're going to be released right before the change of an election cycle.
Well,
Could be.
Well, the remaster is set to come out the end of this year, though. End of
yes, but the Ark 2 is end of 2024 for Ark 2. I mean, what if they're starting to delay and push back because they know right now they're probably going to get a lot less sales because people don't have the extra income at the moment to spend on video games?
Yeah, it's possible. It seems like that's a huge gamble because it could also play you in the regards of a complete and total economic collapse, and people have literally no money. But it's definitely an interesting, definitely an interesting concept. All right, Brian,
it's a possibility.
Find you. It's definitely a possibility.
All right, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, or Truth Social. If you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com, you can go there. Different ways to contact me. Or if you want to go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, go to the upper right-hand side and join our server on Discord, where we've got different ways for you to contact us directly. Or maybe there's a news topic or something that you think we need to see that we've been missing. Go put a link to that in the show news channel, and we'll go check it out. If you want, hey, maybe your Ark server's getting ready to shut down here in however many months. I would encourage you to go to our Ark section, and we got 11 Ark servers running, and a lot of different ways that you can all play. We have a Conan Exile server going as well, and if you want, there you go. They're all up online. Some of the servers get action throughout the day. More than welcome to go. Those are totally free, and we have all the main maps going, so it's pretty cool. If you want to watch the show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube Live or through Rumble after the fact. You can listen to the podcast form after the fact. We upload that once the show is done. So the lower right-hand side, a lot of different ways to listen on whatever platform you prefer. If you are doing that, that means we've got the show notes for that episode uploaded and ready to go. You can go, and we've got a video and audio player built into that page, and then links for all the different things that we discussed throughout that episode. So if there's a video, maybe there's something that we referenced and discussed, but you want to read in more detail, should be a link to it right there. If you want to support us, there's a menu in the option up top, or support infectionpodcast.com/support.
Brian, my friend, as always, greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, and looking forward to everything that's going to happen here in the next couple of days in regards to that big merger and discussing it again next week. All right, Brian, we will catch up with you then. You can check me out on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my daily antics by visiting nickcraig.com and downloading the Wilmington's Morning News podcast. If you missed any portion of our show, want to check out some of our show notes or some of the stories that we talked about, you can head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.